start. So thank you very much for joining. Welcome to our Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM live webinar. My name is Stefan Tapp. I'm the security lead for the Asia Pacific region. A couple of quick housekeeping items. So this webinar is being recorded and we will provide you with a link of the recording post-webinar. I'm going to take some time to answer any questions that you might have. I'll try and answer some of those during the during the session. Failing that, I'll have a little time set at the end of the presentation, and then I'll go through any questions that you have then. So any questions you do have, please pop them into the Q&A, and I'll get through as many as I can as we go through. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit around Cloud SIEM and Sumo Logic. So just one thing to clarify here, I guess. We currently cover kind of 4 areas for our Sumo Logic product set. And as you can see on this slide, we kind of start off with audit and compliance on the left-hand side. Now, this particular webinar itself is actually going to be based around Cloud SIEM, the one you can see highlighted there. But let me just give you a quick overview of the other ones that we have. So our audit and compliance solution, it's highly scalable. It's a secure platform to store all of your data, and it's backed by numerous certifications and attestations. So, for example, we have SOC 2 Type 2 certification, PCI DSS, ISO 27001, etc. Okay, so those are all of our platform accreditations to make sure that all of your data is secure, both in the platform and in transit coming in. For audit and compliance, we have a host of out-of-the-box pre-built compliance apps. You literally go into our app catalog, pick out what you need for the compliance, you install the app, you point it to your relevant data sources, and within seconds, you can be getting visibility over your log sources coming in. Next one there is our cloud security monitoring and analytics. So this kind of builds on top of that audit and compliance for you. Here we offer additional security analytics with the power of performing deep searches against your data set. On top of that as well, there's foundational correlation and alerting, which is the things you require for analyzing your security event logs. On top of that, we have data enrichment and visualization. Again, using those kind of pre-built and customizable dashboards from the app catalog. Some of the other functionality that we have built in at that level, we have integrated threat intelligence, which uses some industry-leading CrowdStrike threat intel feeds. The really strong benefit of having that at this kind of foundational level, when I'm bringing my log sources in, is the fact that I can actually use that CrowdStrike threat intel source to look across everything I ingest. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a security focus. If we have a customer who's using Sumo Logic for multiple use cases, so security logging, application logging, operational logging, I can leverage the CrowdStrike threat intel to actually go and search for indicators such as malicious connections to IPs across all of those logs that are being ingested. We have the capability there for detection and alerting on anomalies via the outlier detection technology. So as an example, if I have a sudden increase in outbound connections going through my firewall to a specific or through a specific port to a specific IP, then our outlier detection will actually flag that as being above normal baseline activity. And again, that's built into this kind of core platform. We also have log reduce and log compare. They use machine learning technology. Log reduce, for example, can take something like 1,000 events coming through. It'll look at those events. If 99% of those events are all the same, it'll present me with a condensed view of those, so that I don't need to literally look through 1,000 events. I've only got 1 or 2 that I need to look through and investigate. Log compare looks at a set of logs from a different time span. A good use case example here, actually not necessarily around security. If I have a customer who is, they're ingesting logs for application monitoring, and somebody's made a change, okay, and now something has stopped working. With that log compare, it can look at the before and after logs and then highlight to me the difference between the two logs, maybe a revision change to a software rollout or something. So those are two pretty good capabilities that we can, of course, leverage those for security as well. Another benefit here for cloud security monitoring and analytics is my community threat benchmarking for global intelligence services. So looking at things like AWS Guard Duty and CloudTrail compares those against all of our customers. So I can actually bring up dashboards around some of those events, and it'll tell me where I might be seeing more Guard Duty events versus other customers. It'll actually give me some detailed information around, what those events are, where they're being generated from, and also a really useful dashboard that can actually tell me what I need to do to remediate those issues. Maybe something like changing a permission to an S3 store or something, maybe locking down access controls, that kind of thing. Then we move on to our Cloud SIEM platform, again, which is what we're going to kind of dig a little bit deeper on today. So Cloud SIEM is like an additional processing layer over that core platform. It gives me continuous threat correlation across multiple log sources that can go back over weeks as well, not just hours. So I have the ability there to be able to do low and slow attack detections. It will correlate across all of my log sources, whether they're on-premise, whether they are in the cloud, whether I'm multi-cloud. So I've got, got applications in AWS and Azure and GCP, etc. It will correlate across all of those. And of course, if I'm in a hybrid situation, I still have some traditional on-premise and also cloud. I can correlate across all of those as well. It also contains a streamlined security analyst workflow. Okay, so making life really easy for my security analyst to receive an insight or an incident and be able to actually go through the workflow and close that off within the platform. I still have the ability to leverage external third-party ITSM systems, ServiceNow, Jira, that kind of thing. But the whole workflow was kind of designed by SOC analysts for SOC analysts, just to make life as easy as possible. The key thing with Cloud SIEM enterprises are automated prioritization. So with more traditional platforms, you might get flooded with several thousand alerts that you have to work through. And I've certainly worked with some customers where those have actually gone up to 8 or 9 million alerts a day. And it's an impossible task. It's really hard to go through those. So with Cloud SIEM Enterprise, what it actually does is it uses some advanced kind of clustering capabilities, takes a look at all of those signals, the high volume signals, and then brings those down into a lower volume of high fidelity alerts, which we call insights, therefore reducing that typical noise and the alert fatigue that we see within the platform. The last one there on our set of products is our Cloud SOAR. Okay, so that's for automating my responses. Once I've gone through and identified that I have an issue, I can now go and automate my response, run it through a playbook, maybe block an IP address on a firewall, reach into Office 365 or Exchange and pull emails from that, force a password reset, those kind of things. Let's have a bit more of a think around the problems we have traditionally now with security operations. And I've just seen a question pop up there around CrowdStrike threat intel and whether it can be leveraged in Cloud SIEM. I'll come to that in a second, if that's okay, and talk a little bit around that one. So here the key thing is that the SOC has to change. we've got kind of three key areas here, which are problem areas for the majority of security operations teams currently. The adoption of cloud, transformation to cloud, the spending for that particular area has grown at 6 times the pace of general IT spending. And according to Gartner, worldwide, for 2021, that was forecast to grow by around about 23.1% over that period. 3 out of 4 security teams agree that adding these cloud infrastructures are bringing in more security alerts. And legacy tools and SIEM platforms just weren't really built to be able to look at the log sources we get from those clouds. So part of that challenge there, of course, is the risk of threat visibility. If I'm moving to the cloud and I can't bring those cloud sources into my legacy platform or what I'm using already, how do I know what's happening in those environments? Second point here as well is, obviously moving to cloud introduces a new threat landscape. I'm migrating apps to the cloud, creating a bigger attack surface. Around about 67% of security professionals are saying that this increasing number of security alerts are coming from new and evolving threats. Just to call out a couple, a simple misconfiguration, exposing an S3 bucket publicly is a common one that we see quite a lot of. The general attack surface explosion, the movement to more mobile devices, Internet of Things, multi-cloud environments, containers, modern apps, etc. And of course, orgs are, we're facing more zero-day threats. The Log4j one recently was a good example, where the time between the discovery and the announcement of those particular vulnerabilities, and then the time that we're seeing exploits being actively targeted, is very, very narrow compared to what it traditionally used to be. The final one here, security operations. It's not a human scale problem anymore. If I'm generating hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of security alerts, I can't just go and grab people and bring them in and sit them in front of my SIEM platform and throw more bodies at the problem. It just doesn't work that way. It's incredibly hard to recruit people currently into security. Even then, you're still facing the same problem, right? You're still facing that alert fatigue of too many events, etc. So we need to shift our focus there and actually use technology to start addressing those issues for us. So put simply, you need to modernize security operations. If you're moving to the cloud, then go with a cloud SIEM platform that's able to ingest all of that for me and start doing that actively. So this slide really talks a little bit around where we are different as a cloud SIEM solution. The key one there really, and something that as an ex-security analyst myself, I found this incredibly powerful within the Sumo platform, is this automated insights, the ability to take thousands of events and distill those down into a lower volume of alerts, but with a higher fidelity. So the way that works is we have something called an adaptive signal clustering capability. It essentially takes those alerts, or signals as we call them within Sumo. It tracks the entity, it tracks severity level of signals, and then it also applies that look back window to give me that low and slow capability. And then using some algorithms, we can bring those signals together into an insight, gives me that complete timeline of activity about what a user has been doing. So there's some real strong benefits there. It's almost like having an automated level 1 analyst. Question now around insight notifications, can they be customized? And the answer to that is yes. There's a couple of different ways I can do that. You know, insights are typically generated automatically. I can adjust the severity levels of insights. I can add and remove signals to those insights, and I can create custom insights as well. So if I have a single alert that comes in that I want to action straight away as a high fidelity actionable item, then I can make that an insight as it comes into the platform. Okay, so I don't need to wait for it to kind of build up with other signals before it gets to that insight stage. Second point here really is around scalability. So because we're a cloud native platform, you know, the product was built in the cloud from day one. We have the ability to scale as you grow, whether that's organically, whether that's in the unfortunate situation where you have a major security breach or a security event happening. Maybe I'm getting a denial of service attack, etc. By having a platform like Sumo, if I'm suddenly getting 1,000 times more events coming in than I normally would do in a day or an hour, our system automatically scales up to allow for that. Okay, we don't get to the point where I'm going to start missing events. My platform grinds to a halt. My analysts can no longer do searching. We don't really have those issues. We scale up and then we scale back down. And it's completely transparent to our customers as well. They see no degradation in the service, etc. There's an economic factor to this as well. You know, a single platform. So traditionally, my applications team might have been logging to one environment. My security team would have been logging into their SIEM platform. IT operations might have then used another platform to log into. With Sumo, you can bring all of that into our core platform, and then all of my teams can access that appropriately. Full RBAC permission. So if I don't want my operations guys to see security relevant data, then I can segregate that out by permissions, you know, to make sure that doesn't happen. So the good thing there is I'm reducing my overall costs, I'm reducing my footprint, and I'm also reducing the amount of different systems I have to keep pivoting out to. We additionally have, I talked a little bit around it, that core platform and the analytics, and obviously Cloud SIEM, which is what we're going to do a demo on in a few seconds. But I have the benefits there of both worlds, right? I can do raw searching against my logs as they come in. I can do my dashboarding, my reporting capability, and then Cloud SIEM Enterprise can do that automatic correlation for me at a deeper level, looking across everything, and then obviously give me that workflow there, you know, to be able to work with as well. And then of course our supportability there as well of all cloud sources. So, you know, we're kind of agnostic with whatever cloud source you might be hosted in. You know, we can ingest logs and support from AWS, Azure, GCP, yeah, or any or all of those at the same time. Extensive API capability within the product as well. You know, being able to bring in logs and reach out externally and use APIs to different things. We have a lot of capability there as well. The final one here then is around rapid time to value. Again, because we're kind of cloud native, it's not unusual for us to spin up an environment for a customer, ingesting log sources literally within an hour or two, and then start providing actionable intelligence across those as well. You know, there's been a few instances recently where I was working with a customer. We brought in some AWS related sources, and actually I had insights generating in under 2 minutes for activity that was going on that shouldn't have been in their environment. So yeah, rapid time to value. None of this standing the solution up and then 6 months down the line I'm still bringing log sources in, or I'm still tuning the platform. You know, our out of the box content, both from the app catalog side and from the rule side on the Cloud SIEM, gets you up and running really, really quickly. So again, that kind of just highlights those things there that I've discussed in that quick graphic. Let me just get ready to jump into my demo system for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take you through a day in the analyst life with our Cloud SIEM enterprise platform, and talk to you a little bit about how easy it is to do investigations. I'll pick one or two insights, take you through how quickly I can do them in here, and then talk a little bit about how long it would have taken me traditionally in another platform. Question popped up there around case management as well. So yes, we have some case management actually built into Cloud SIEM itself. So I can contain everything within Cloud SIEM. I can additionally leverage integrations with things like ServiceNow. If I have I can never remember the name for the acronym, Security Incident Responder plugin, I think it is, from ServiceNow, then I have full two-way integration with that product. But I can integrate with Slack, pretty much anything that can take a webhook. Okay, we can feed in and create case management on an external system. On top of that as well, Cloud SOAR also gives me that capability to do some case management there as well. Okay, so if I have that product, then my case management workflow will kind of work through there. So with that, let me just jump across and start sharing my Cloud SIEM console. Okay, let me give you a very quick overview here then of what we're looking at on this main heads-up display. Probably first thing you guys are going to notice is it looks quite different to any other SIEM platform out there. The heads-up display was actually designed by, I can never remember the name, one of the guys who did the graphics for World of Warcraft. So it's got that kind of game type feel to it, but it's incredibly useful in giving me information as a SOC analyst. Let's start up on the top left-hand corner. So I have 8 million records here. Those are my events that are coming in from the Sumo core platform. We call it a record because we enrich that event as it comes through into the platform. If it contains an IP address, an external IP, we do automatic ASN information enrichment, tell you who the ISP is, which country it's in, etc. We can also ingest additional context from things like Active Directory. We can ingest content from other EDR solutions as well. So that then creates us a record. Those records are then processed across our rules engine, and the rules engine has somewhere around 450 to 500 out of the box content rules curated by us, updated several times a week. You can create custom content, by the way. It's not just a case of you get what we provide you and that's it. So now across that rules engine, I've broken that down to 531,000 signals, as you can see here on the screen. Now, in a traditional SIEM platform, that's where I would spend my time as a security analyst. Okay, I would be sifting through nearly over 500,000 signals, sorry, and trying to work out how do I prioritize these? Which of these are important? That typical needle in a haystack problem. The alert fatigue issue, that's where we have this problem with a lot of traditional SIEM platforms. Then what happens is those signals get processed across our adaptive signal clustering engine to create an insight. And as I mentioned lightly just a second ago, the way that works is signal contains an entity. The entity can be a username, could be an IP address, could be a host name, could be pretty much anything, actually. I can create custom entity types and track those. Each signal comes with a severity score, and then we also look back over what else has been happening for that entity and those severities over 14 days out of the box. but I can go back further as well, you know, like I said, to kind of detect those low and slow attacks. When the severity of those signals for any given entity reaches a threshold, then those signals are clustered together into an insight. So you can see we've essentially gone here from 8 million events down to 8 things that you need to really go and investigate in my last 24-hour window. I can change this as well, anything out to 7 days to give me a broader view. This panel here has got some fairly basic insight metrics as well. We do feed all of our actions around insights back into the core platform to give me more comprehensive SOC dashboarding capabilities. Mean time to respond, mean time to detect. What's the most prevalent MITRE attack stage that I'm seeing in my environment? And we'll talk a little bit more around MITRE in a few minutes. So we feed all of that back into a more comprehensive dashboard. Allows me to see how my SOC is performing, you know, identify any issues where we've got problems, particularly in responding to insights and incidents, etc. Center of the screen really is a repeat of that same information. It's a radar view. Outer ring there really is my records, inner ring are signals, and then the little color triangles are my insights that are being generated. Red ones for new, amber are for in progress. The white ones are where I've assigned it to a dedicated team, and again, we'll see that a bit more in detail in a second. Anything that's green is what's recently been closed, okay? But you'd only really see those dependent on how you have your screen set up. Bear with me 2 seconds. My earpods have just died, so let me just switch my audio. There we go. Should be transparent for you guys. Top right-hand corner, this is what we call kind of a baseball card view of the latest insight that's been generated. You'll notice the insight name here, the number is sequential. Okay, so the next one generated would be 4400. The rest of the name is based on the MITRE attack tags that are applied to the signal. So all of our signals, whether they are ones that we create for you or ones that you can go in and manually create, you can assign MITRE tactics, techniques, and sub-techniques to each of those signals. So we extract those MITRE labels, and then that's what we call our insight. Okay. Here's the entity that I'm tracking. It's a username in this particular instance. The crosshair in the center there really is just my timeline of events running left to right, and then my severity rating of those. So you can see in this particular instance, most of those signals are somewhere between 0 and 5 for their severity. It's telling me there are 5 signals as part of this insight. It was tracked over 13 days. I'll talk a little bit more about global confidence on the next screen. And then finally, bottom right-hand side here is just a quick snapshot of who's working on which insights, any new ones that are coming in, etc. Okay. So with that, let me just jump straight into the insights now, and let's start looking at this from an analyst view and start looking at how we do our workflow. So this particular screen that you can see here is what we call our Kanban viewboard. If I want to assign a particular insight now to another team, I simply drag and drop it across to the relevant team. Okay, that reassigns that one now to my tier 3 team, for example. Some of these columns are customizable. The new and the in progress are not, you know, they're default columns that are there, but everything else here is customizable. So I can have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, for example. Let me talk a bit about global confidence at this level. So you'll notice that all of these insights have a global confidence score. Okay. Global confidence, actually, let me hover over that, and then hopefully you might just about be able to read that text there as well. Global confidence is something that's pretty unique to Sumo Logic. because we're cloud native, we have the ability to anomalize some information about what all of our customers are doing. Excuse me. So what I have the ability to do, when a customer goes in and they investigate an insight and they close it, depending on how they close it, whether it's closed as a real incident, closed as a false positive, etc., we anomalize that information along with information about the signals that are part of that insight. We crowdsource that together. And then whenever that insight or a very similar insight generates now for another customer, we can apply a confidence rating to it. The higher the score, the more confident we are that it's a real incident versus a false positive, okay? Anything with a low score could be a false positive, but it could also be, it's the first time we've seen it and the score is currently building up, okay? Really useful for junior analysts in the team. Maybe you've got some guys you've moved across from another business area, you know, from networks or from the service desk, starting to learn a bit about security. Global confidence allows me to give them a little bit of an edge on, you know, telling them, hey, this is a little bit more serious. You know, you can use this to start understanding how and where we prioritize. So with that, let me jump into an insight then, and actually take you through, you know, how they work and how we investigate them. So I'm going to pick this one here that's popped up. Couple of main things really here, I guess, to point out. So this right-hand panel here is what I would call my my workbench. This is where I'm looking at what's happening, timeline of when it happened, etc. Left-hand panel, left-hand panel, the top part here is part of my workflow and case management, and we'll come back to that in a second. The bottom part here kind of just expands a bit more on what we saw during that baseball card view. Okay, so the MITRE tags that are part of it, any other tag that I have created and associated. Gives me things like the entity, the severity, you know, when it was created, what was the dwell time between the first signal and the last signal, my mean time to detect, for example. Coming back to my main panel now. So now as a security analyst, all I need to really do is to start scrolling down through these signals and have a look at what's happened. So my first one here has come from Proofpoint, and you can see I've got a user received an email with a phishing link, okay. All of my key pieces of information are being extracted into this, this top level view. If I wanted to drill down a little bit deeper, I click on the signal name, and I get a bit more context here around what this signal is and how it was generated. So things like the expression that triggered this, and we'll talk a bit about that as part of our raw content. Some information around the signal itself. Again, here's that key information that I can extract up to a header level, and I simply do that by favoriting fields with the events themselves. So if I wanted to pop this classification here into the header, I click on the gold star, and then somewhere here, yeah, there you go, fields classification. You can see that that's appeared there for me. Okay, let's go back out to the main level. So yeah, my first one there then, you know, users received the phishing email. Now, as I scroll down, I'm getting a firewall alert from Checkpoint saying that a malicious file was allowed through the firewall. My third signal here is coming off of my EDR solution, CrowdStrike in this instance, saying, hey, I've detected malware or a malicious file on this endpoint. And then finally here, I've got a threat intel match against the file hash as well. Okay, so, you know, we're using an external threat intel lookup, and it's saying, hey, this file hash is known bad. Now, to perform that investigation and build that picture of what's happened, you know, quite simply, users received a phishing email, clicked on the link, downloaded malware, and then the malware's tried to deploy on the endpoint. Took me less than a minute, 2 minutes to be able to investigate and come to that conclusion. Now, if I think back to my time as a SOC analyst, and specifically around things like phishing emails, you know, the only alert I might have got would be a malware alert from my endpoint security tool saying, hey, malware detected. Then what I'd have to do is look at that event, who was the user involved or the host name, then go and do a search for that user or that host. What else happened around that time? How did the malware get to the endpoint? You know, did a user plug in a USB? Did they click on the link in a web browser? Did it come via email? Traditionally, that would take me about 2 hours to actually go through and investigate that. Whereas here, quite clearly, we're doing that within a couple of minutes. Okay, so we're minimizing that exposure time in our environment, which is, you know, really, really important, certainly for things like phishing emails and so on. Okay. Once I've investigated that, now I can do a number of things dependent on what my processes are within the SOC. I could pass this off to an external ITSM, such as ServiceNow. If I want to run all of the case management just in my platform, I might reassign this to maybe the email team and ask them to, you know, go and check for any more emails with the same subject line. If I think the malware has deployed, you know, it's unclear from the event whether it's deployed, I could pass it to a desktop team and say, can you go and do a full system scan? That's if it's not within my remit, of course, to do that. If it is, I've investigated it, I'm happy, I've rung the user up, I've given them some user education, then I can just come in, click on Close Insight. Okay, I'm asked for a resolution, so I would click Resolved. I can have subcategories below this as well. I can have a subcategory, full system scan, contacted user for user education. Okay, I can have all of these sub resolutions that I can customize and create in there. So I mark it as resolved, pop some comments in, click on close, and then repeat the process. Okay, go back and investigate the next insight. So I'm pretty sure you guys will agree that that whole kind of investigation process is really fast compared to, you know, what you might be used to with other systems. And again, everything's been designed there to be as quick as possible when it comes to determining what's happened and being able to provide that kind of resolution. If I'm running a SOAR tool, whether it's Sumo Logic's own Cloud SOAR or I'm running Phantom or Demisto, you know, I can integrate with that as well and then push this out to run a playbook to go and do whatever I want that playbook to do. You know, quarantine an endpoint, reset a user password, etc. Okay. So that kind of talks a little bit around insights. I can still do some of the traditional things like threat hunting, looking at all of the signals that are being generated. I have the ability to come in here, click on some context-driven menus, do things like, you know, look at anything where the severity is equal to or greater than 8. Okay, that will then allow me to go through and start investigating these manually if I wanted to before they get promoted into insights. We keep a track of all of our entities. So every time a signal generates, we take the entity, whether it's a user, host name, IP address, we populate it into an entity table. And then these entities will contain further information around, you know, what this particular user has been doing. So if I pick any one of these here, timeline of activity. Okay, here are any signals that are currently being tracked within my time window, and anything they've triggered previously, including, you know, both signals and insights. I have the ability to enrich users at this level as well. My normal users disappeared, but it would normally give me a panel there with Active Directory as well if it's an AD user. If it's something like an external IP address, when I look at the entity, I get the ASN information populated in there as well. Okay, so, you know, I can still go in and see what's happening from a user perspective. You know, what are my users up to? What are my hosts up to, etc. Okay. I can apply criticalities. If I've got a user who I want to increase the score, maybe it's my chief finance officer, the guy that can authorize changing bank accounts to suppliers. If that guy gets spearphished, we could lose some serious money. So I might want to apply a criticality score for the CFO and say, hey, if this user generates any signals, double the severity level, so I get visibility of what's happening there faster. Okay, so there's a couple of really useful things there as well. Moving on to rules, as I mentioned, somewhere around about 450 to 500 out of the box content rules. This number shows higher just because it's our demo environment, but we push these rule content out a couple of times a week. We have the ability as well to apply filters on top of rules. So in traditional times, if I needed to modify a rule, I would duplicate the rule, disable the original, and then modify something in the copied rule. The downside to that is if Sumo comes along and we improve the detection algorithm, okay, then I might miss out on those benefits. So we have a concept here of I can actually apply a filter on top of any rule I want. If I want to exclude a user from triggering these CrowdStrike ones, then I can apply a filter that says an user is not John Doe or whatever. Okay, you kind of get the idea. So that's pretty cool. Probably here then, just to close off, I'm kind of mindful of the time. Threat intelligence, you know, we can ingest threat intel from Stix taxi. I can do custom feeds, I can upload indicators, I can control these via API as well. Okay, so I can push in by API, I can pull out by API, update, and so on. Another one here is we include network sensors as well as part of the product. They are based on Zeek open source sensors. You deploy one into your environment, send some span traffic across to it, and then this sensor can look at the network layer, okay, and we've got a heap of rules and content around that as well. But also it has the ability of, if it sees any files in transit across the network, it can actually take a side copy of that file and run a scan using Yara rules against that as well. So another good layer of kind of detection there as well. Okay, so that kind of sums up Cloud SIEM, I guess, in a nutshell. Excuse me. Let me just change my share back to my presentation, and just cover off a couple of last-minute things there. So a question there: can actions, notifications, respond be automated in Cloud SIEM? Yes, you can, absolutely. I can automatically have it do something when an insight is generated. Would I do that from day one if I had just brought the product in? Possibly not. I'd want to kind of, as with any SIEM platform, right, I'd want to do a little bit of tuning there to make sure I don't get flooded with emails from expected behavior. I might get some insights generating from AWS, and when I investigate, that's kind of normal behavior. So once I've done some of that tuning, you know, applying those filters to the signals that we just talked about, 100%, yeah, I can automate a response every time an insight is created. So yeah, no problem. Okay, so so yeah, we talked a bit about that. You know, how a modern Cloud SIEM can help you within, you know, your SOC workflow, etc. A couple of other ways that we can help you here as well. So professional services, we've got a really good team of pro services guys who are all ex-SOC and security analysts as well, so they can help customers get the best of the products. We have our, what we call our SecOps team as well, who's a team based in the US. These guys can provide a service as well where they come in and actively threat hunt in your environment using the Sumo products. So that's also something that's pretty useful. And then of course goes without saying, premium support, the ability to reach out to somebody pretty quickly, but also to have technical account managers that are working with you day to day as well, to help you get the best of the platform. When it comes to deployment regions, as you can see here, we're pretty much covered across the whole region. So here within the Asia Pacific Japan region, we have instances in Sydney, Mumbai and Tokyo. So if you have data sovereignty, you're based in Australia, then obviously Sydney is the one to go for. Our entire platform is hosted there as well. As you can see here as well, so we popped into the Gartner Magic Quadrant for SIEM last year and came in at that visionary level. First time that we've appeared in there, so we're pretty proud of that, that particular appearance in there, and look forward to seeing how we kind of move that way in the future. And finally, I'm going to leave this one on the screen for you. So if you've got your mobiles handy, you can do a quick scan of that QR code and that will take you off to our Cloud SIEM website to give you a bit more information. Happy to take any more questions. I think I've answered all the ones that are in the Q&A there. So if you guys don't have any more questions, then thank you very much for attending. It's been a pleasure as usual to talk to you about Cloud SIEM. By all means, reach out to us. You can get more information off of our website. And like I said at the beginning, a recording of this this session will be sent out to you as well. So if you want to replay back and catch some of the things that I went through, you'll have the ability to do that. So with that, I just want to say thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. So thank you very much for attending.